All right, so in this webinar, I'm going to be talking about understanding your toddler's brain, the captivating learning points for toddlers. Then we are going to, on day 3, you learn about cracking the power code, where you'll be learning about the communication code, the attention code, and the tantrum code. So once you are able to get all of these things, at least it will start you up on your journey of intentional parenting, and you'll be able to do well with your little human. Because I understand that there is a lot of responsibilities upon us as parents, especially when it comes to little human. So very much we are moving on. As we get into the course, you will understand it better. Now, this is a quote, and this is a food for thought. Children are not things to be molded, but they are people to be unfolded. Yes, you know, we all come into parenting with this mindset that we want to mold our children, especially into what we want. And that's what I tell parents. Your job is not to mold your child into what you want. It is to show them the way they should go. So we are to unfold the people they are. That means the child that you have in your hand, is you are not just molding the child, you are also unfolding, you know, the personality. You are unfolding the person that child is. You are unfolding the gifts that God has put in your hands. Parenting is not about the child, it is about the parents. Parenting is not about your child. I know if I give some of us the privilege to tell me some things right here, you will tell me, oh, you don't understand my child is like this, and everything. A lot of parents will say is about the child. They don't say anything about themselves, but the real thing is parenting is about you, not your child. And as you begin to learn, it will become clear to you that this thing is not actually about my child, it's all about me. Another thing I want you to know is that parenting is not an emergency. It's not an emergency. It is a process and it is a journey. You don't leave Lagos for Abuja and get to, even if you are taking a flight, you can do it in 2 minutes. There is a process, it's a journey, and it takes time. So this thing we call parenting, you can attract it like an emergency. Like you now wait until your child is 7 or your child is 13 and the breast is coming out, and then you start to say, oh, this child is going, what will I do now? It's not an emergency. You know for 9 months that you are pregnant and you're going to become a parent. That is very, very important. Now, let me start by telling you reasons why a lot of parents struggle with toddlers. Number 1, the knowledge gap. When you don't have knowledge, you will struggle with toddlers. In fact, parenting generally, when knowledge is lacking, there will be struggle. Now, let me share my story at this point. When I started out as a parent, of course, like many of us, I have very good intention. You know, I know the kind of child I want to raise and all of that. But when I get into the practical and children started coming, I realized that I was becoming something else. I was yelling. I mean, I'm like, this is not the kind of mother that I want to be. And sometimes I don't know why I act the way I act. Until I started learning, I don't know why my child, I think she just turned, maybe she was 1+ going to 2 years. I don't know why she was acting the way she was acting. I do not understand myself. I do not understand my child. And then I said, what is the gap between this thing? And then I decided to begin to learn. You know, before then, when I was newly married, I read books, but I read spiritual books. Like many of us, if you're a Christian, I'm sure you must have read a spiritual book on parenting, like kingdom parenting and all of those things. Now, it's good, but there are things they won't tell you. For example, in kingdom parenting books, they won't tell you how to manage trauma. It's not their job. They just give you these spiritual principles, which is good, which is a very good foundation. But the knowledge gap is very, very important. In fact, the devil take advantage of the ignorance of parents to get onto the children, even though the parent is praying. So I tell people, praying is powerful, but learning is richer than praying. This is very important. So one of the reasons you are struggling is knowledge. And I believe that by the end of this class, you are going to get knowledge and you will understand your child better. You will understand why you also act the way you act better. So we are not here to just learn about the children. We are learning to learn about ourselves too. So my journey began when I now started to learn. In fact, before I started learning, I was having a lot of struggle. And then when I began to learn, I realized that my child is not the problem. It's because I do not know what to do. That is why I was having the challenges I was having. So the knowledge gap is the number one reason for struggle. The communication gap. Yes, a lot of us don't know how to communicate with toddlers. That's one of the things I've seen that parents struggle with. You are saying something, your child is not getting it. Sometimes your child is also communicating, you are not getting it. So the communication gap is another thing. The attention gap. Oh, this child is demanding so much attention, and parents find it sometimes hard to cope with such things. So, who are they? Toddlers are children between age 2 to 5, and this class will focus on both infants and toddlers. Now, most of the time you see people regarding, calling a 1-year-old a toddler. Now, you only have a full toddler when your child turns 2. And that is why when most of these things begin to really show up very well, when your child turns 2, it will be like a whole new child. It will be like so many things will show up. So when a child turns 2, you now have a full toddler. But for the sake of interaction, we still refer to 1-year-old, 1 year, 6 months as toddlers. So let's go right into this conversation. The first thing I want us to learn tonight is understanding the brain of your child. Now, basically speaking, the brain, the human brain is designed to function by receiving information from the senses. That means the sense of sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. Then the brain interprets the information and responds accordingly. That is generally the function of the brain. Now, at pregnancy, the brain organ is fully formed at 24 weeks. Nevertheless, the human brain does not fully develop into full capacity until a person is 25 years old. So the organ is formed, but very small. So for the brain to be able to process information well, process information correctly, it will take 25 years. That means it takes 25 years to process the brain of an individual. Now, you imagine the brain of your 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. 25 years difference, or let's say 20 years difference, 23 years is not a joke. So when you are dealing with a toddler, know that you are dealing with a tiny brain. Know that you are dealing with a brain that is not yet developed. And when you understand this, you stop bringing your ego into the things that your child is doing. So most of the time, the reason why we are frustrated is because we are bringing our ego into it. You are thinking, oh, this child is behaving like this to me. And instead of you to calm down and correct the child, you are taking it personal. You are dealing with a small brain. And this is like the foundation to everything that we are going to be discussing in this class, so that you will now understand how to communicate and how to relate with your child better. Now, the brain development in the first 5 years. The first 5 years is the most active period for the brain development. The brain neurons are active and waiting to be weaved into intricates. So the brain neurons at this stage, they are raw, they are plain, and they are ready to take in information, process information, and establish, information in the mind and in the brain of a child. So whatever the interaction that the child is having with the environment will begin to form the things that the child will have in their brain. So what will be in the brain of the child is what the neurons weaved into intricates. You will get it. Don't worry. I'm using scientific terms. You will get it. Neurons are nerves that transmit information to other nerve cells in the body. They are called information carriers. So what they do is, once you pass an information, let's say, for example, every morning when you wake your child up, you are always shouting, get up, we are late, we are, all those things. The neurons are picking it and they are weaving it into the brain of the child. They are weaving it as information into the brain of the child. If you are passing on aggression, they are weaving it in. You understand? And if you are passing it, maybe in the morning, you wake up, you call your child, you love the child, you sing for the child, you do all of those things, the neurons are weaving it in. Because when the child clocks 5, those things begin to control the behavior of the child. So it is input and output. Now, also at this stage, synapses are also formed. So synapses are transmitters of signals to the effector cell. They connect the permission signal. Now, what the synapses does is that they connect permission and what is not permitted. So the signal you give that, okay, what is permitted is shouting. What is permitted is, aggression. If you give that signal, the synapses will register it as permitted. So they signal it into the brain of the child. The brain at this stage eliminates connections that are seldom or not used. Now, there are also things that the child needs to use at this stage. If you are not using it, the brain will just disconnect from it. Don't worry, as we get along, you will understand it better, because we'll get into windows of opportunities and some other things. So these are the things that happen. The summary is that you are processing in the first 5 years. The first year, the second year, most of the things you are doing is like inputs. So every interaction the child is having from the outside world is weaved into their brain as what is permitted. And so when it's time to act, the synapses begin to signal to the effector cells and says that, okay, this thing is permitted. Beating people is permitted. How will I put it? Yelling is permitted. I mean, some of those things that we do. Now, if it is love too, this particular, love is permitted, hug is permitted, all of those things is there. Now, this is the stage that most children develop trauma. When a child is always in a chaotic environment, the child is developing trauma because of the things that the child is taking in. This is the child that most children develop serious aggression, uncontrolled emotion. So the interaction going on at this particular period is very important, even to the extent of learning. There are concepts that the child needs to learn at this particular stage. If it is missed, the thing that will be happening is maybe rewiring. Let's move on. So it's very important. Also, in the first 5 years, 90% of the brain neurons are weaved and developed to establish information that begins to control the child's behavior. So after the 5th year, you begin to reap the harvest of the investments. So the child begins to act based on what the brain has weaved over time. So what is controlling the child's behavior is what has been imputed between age 1 to 5. So you see now that the work is actually upon us as parents. The child begins to act based on the information the neurons have established. That's why they tell us that the brain of a child is like a play sheet. Whatever you write on it is what is written on it. These children have a mind that is ready to absorb everything. So this stage determines whether the child will develop trauma or aggression. This stage determines whether a child will be loving or selfish, whether a child will be dull or intelligent, happy or sorrowful. Windows of opportunities are actively open at this stage. So this is the time that the windows of opportunities are open. Now, most of the time, what we get back from these children are the things that we give to them. Now, I'm still going to come to trauma. I'm still going to come to all of those things because you're like, but I'm not the one that is making this child cry. And you will see it. You will see our role and how sometimes when these children need help, we don't even know how to help them. All right? So, some facts about these children's brain. They have a plain and innocent mind, and their mind is ready to absorb everything. The way you present it to them is the way they will take it. They have a need to connect, to bond, to play, to learn, and to explore. That's their need at that point. Now, most of the time, we restrict them from playing, but playing is a need for a child. They have no logic or reasoning. They can't reason. They have no logic. All of those things, they don't have it. And sometimes we relate with them like someone that have logic or reasoning. And that's where the communication gap comes in. That's where the understanding gap comes in. Because you are expecting your child to reason like somebody that have logic, and the child cannot reason like that. They cannot manipulate or test you. They push boundaries because they want to find out and know. Now, many a times I've seen parents say, oh, this child is testing me. You don't understand. It's exactly what I said the child should not do, that the child will go and do. Is because they want to know, they want to explore. So the child is like, okay, mommy said I should not put my leg on the chair. Let me put it on the chair and see what will happen. So sometimes when they do those things, it's not because they are testing. They really don't have the mind to manipulate you or to test you. They don't have it. I know we think sometimes that this child, this child know what he's doing, Jare. He's just testing. He just want to trigger me. No, they don't have. But they test those things as a way of exploring and as a way of learning and understanding their environment. That's what it is. It's not, your child is not trying to manipulate you or test you. Now, these children, the toddlers, are egocentric and selfish. We need to teach them how to love. They are naturally selfish. They are naturally selfish. If you are getting follow, please let me just see you in the chat box, and please mute your mic, please, so that we will not have interference. So these children are selfish. Yes, that is why you see yourself, you have played with your child for some time and you are not even having time for yourself. The moment you take your phone, your child begins to cry again for attention. They're like, it's only you that will be giving all the attention to. It's because they are selfish, they are egocentric, they only think about themselves alone. And we have to teach them how to love. They want all the attention. Any attention is fine for a toddler. Even if it is shouting, as long as your child is getting your attention, that child is fine. Even if it is you are yelling, they just want your attention, any attention whatsoever. That's why you are shouting, they are still pushing your, they are still just doing what you say, what you are saying. They should stop, because they always want attention, whether it is a positive attention or a negative attention. As long as the attention is on them, that's why they even test boundaries, because they know that they want to get your attention. And by the way, a child can do anything to get attention. A child can roll on the floor, bang his head on the wall, and do anything just to get attention, because attention is a need, and we must be there to meet that need. They can only process a straight and direct instruction. This is very important. Toddlers cannot process a word that is too big, or an instruction that is too big. They cannot process negative word command, like no, like stop, like don't. They can't process it. So when you say don't run, what the child is hearing is run. They can't process negative word command. That's why most of the time you be like, is when I say you should not pour the water, that is when you now carry the water and pour it. What the child is hearing, when you say don't pour the water, what the child is hearing is pour the water. So they can only hear a straight and direct instruction, which is why you now need to twist how you communicate. So instead of saying what they should not do, you say what they should do. We are still going to get into that. They function majorly with their emotional brain. Yes, that's why they cry a lot. They cry about everything, because they function majorly with their emotional brain. And in fact, a major percentage of their brain currently is emotional. That's who they are. They are more emotional. Let's talk about facts about toddlers. We are still on facts about toddlers. Why you constantly get irritated and aggressive. If you are a parent and you find out that you are always constantly getting irritated, you are always getting aggressive. Now, this is where I'm coming from. Sometimes I get irritated with my child. I don't even know why, until I discover that I have this unhealed trauma from my childhood. So the number one reason is you have a trauma that you are not healed from, especially from childhood. If you were abandoned as a child, if you were yelled at as a child, if you were beaten as a child, if when you cry for help as a child, nobody was there to cuddle you, to hold you, to hug you, you will be getting irritated when your child demands for such thing. Especially when your child is already 2 years above. We feel like the only time to cry them is when they are still babies. So when the child is trying to cuddle you, sometimes you push the child away and all of those things. So the reason a lot of adults get irritated about children is because they didn't have that love when they were young. They didn't have that that attention when they were young. So it's not there for them to give. So when you see adults who are, you say, take this child away, they hate seeing a child cry. You know, they just hate it. It's because of childhood trauma. And these things, they are there. The way you were raised, the way you were parented, directly affects your parenting. Is a direct effect. So another thing is lack of emotional mastery and management. Everything triggers you. There are things that triggers you. If you don't know your triggers, you will not know how to manage your emotions. Emotional management is another topic on its own. And you see, in this 3 days class, we have a lot to cover. So how you were parented, your childhood attachments. Yes, your childhood attachments. There is something called attachment theory. If your attachment, we have secure attachments, we have insecure attachments. If your attachment theory is faulty, you will constantly get irritated and aggressive towards your child. So you are acting from a place that you yourself may not sometimes be able to understand, to explain. I'm telling you, this time I'm talking about myself. I will beat my child and I will finish beating. I'll be like, why did I beat this child? Why? You understand? It's because I was acting from a place that I do not understand. Because that was how I have childhood trauma. My childhood was a traumatic one. And when I say childhood trauma, please don't think about rape. When people hear trauma, they are thinking about big English or one big thing. No. For a child, anything that is short of love is trauma. You know, and anything can lead to trauma. A child is having emotional meltdown, and they tell you, leave the child, let the child cry. The child will not kill the child. The crying will not kill the child. And then you abandon the child, you allow the child to cry. It's not good. It's trauma. It can give that child a traumatic experience. So these things, I know that some of us, for us, that's how we were raised, that's how they said it and all of that. But some of these things affect the children. And when we pass it on, when they also become parents, it will be hard for them to cope with some of these things. So if you're always wondering why you're always irritated or aggressive, sometimes it's stress. You know, you are coming from work, you have a toddler that is demanding attention, especially some of us that do all this stressful job, that by the time you get home, they are finished using you. I mean, to even be useful for yourself is stressful for you. So those things affect how we react to our children. Another thing is why a toddler is constantly having emotional outbursts. Now, this is another side to me. I've talked about you as a parent, why you are getting irritated and aggressive. Let's talk about your child. Why is your child always having emotional outbursts? Now, it is okay for a toddler to throw tantrums or have emotional outbursts once in a while, but it shouldn't be a constant thing. If your child is having trauma 5 to 6 times every day, if something is wrong. And that's what I'm talking about here. So I'm not saying that there will be no emotional outbursts. There will be, because of the children we are relating with. There will be, but it shouldn't be all the time. And in fact, it shouldn't be every day. Yes, it shouldn't. There are days that your child should be happy from morning till night. So that is very important. So abandonment, a lonely and bored child will always have outbursts. So if your child is always lonely and bored, anything you do like this, they will just react. And it's becoming something else, because if you are not paying attention to it, the child will develop this aggression as it grows. Lack of love, lack of connection, lack of bonding, and lack of attention. You know, a child that is not getting all these things, play and all of those things, will constantly have this outburst. And encoding of aggression behavior in the DNA from either of the parents. Yes, it has been discovered scientifically that some behaviors, if repeatedly passed on from generation to generation, can be encoded in the DNA. So when you see a family where they tell you, oh, they beat wives in their family, it is because that behavior has been encoded in the DNA, because it has been passed from generation to generation, and none of them do something about it. So it has been, so aggression and all of these things can be encoded in the DNA of a child. So if it is encoded in the DNA of a child, and the child is bringing it from either of the parents, the child will always have outbursts. So sometimes you don't understand, but we've been playing, I've been good to this child. Why are you behaving like this? It could mean that an encoding has happened in the system of that child. And you need now to help the child. In fact, you will really need to help that child. So in case you are wondering, I don't know the source of this outburst, these are few examples that I can give tonight. Now, you are going to evaluate how you are meeting your child's emotional needs. So tonight, I want to bring you to a place of evaluation. Ask yourself, how much of my child's emotional needs am I meeting? How much of my child's emotional needs am I meeting? Very important. You need, I'm going to send this task into the WhatsApp group. You need to check the home environment of your child. You need to check the school environment. My child's caregiver or teacher, are they aggressive? How are they behaving towards each other? Because sometimes it's not from the home. It can be from the school. It can be from the caregiver. You understand? So what we are going to do tonight is, let us evaluate things. If your child is always, look at it, how many times does my child throw tantrums on daily basis? I mean, take a survey. Okay, in the last 3 days, how has it been? Now, am I loving? Am I showing love? Am I caring? Am I smiling? Am I playing? I mean, what kind of emotion am I constantly giving towards my child? Every relationship is governed by two emotions, anger or love. So if anger is governing your, how will I put it? If anger is governing your parenting, there is problem. So you need to check all these things before you conclude that, oh, is this child behavior, my child is like this and my child is like this. I want you to begin to go and look at all of these things that I've mentioned today and do a kind of assessment about yourself and the things that you are wiring into your child's brain, the things that you are processing into the child's brain before you now judge the outcome that you are getting. So that is what I want you to pay attention to from this class tonight. Now, there are windows of opportunity. Windows of opportunity. Now, windows of opportunities are sensitive period in a child's life when the specific types of learning takes place at the most incredible rates. This is a magical period in the child when the child soaks up specific concepts with remarkable ease. This period is the best wiring opportunity at the most rapid rates. The next opportunity is strengthening and the wiring. Now, I'm going to explain a bit about windows of opportunity. There are times that a child can learn some things with ease. Now, let's say the window of opportunity for emotional intelligence open between age 0 to 2. If that window of opportunity is not maximized, the next window is 2 to 5. After 2 to 5, what you'll be doing is rewiring of the neurons. Don't forget, I explained how neurons are weaved. Now, rewiring will take extra work. So there are times, maybe you just realize that my child is just getting attracted to this particular thing. The window of opportunity for learning may be open at that time. Maybe for colors. You understand? Anything color, anything color, anything color. The child is just getting attracted with this irrepressible attachments. And you have to even be breaking the child away from it. That means the window of opportunity is open. And it is your job to maximize the window of opportunity. So at this stage, the child will gravitate towards certain activities or lessons with irrepressible interest. So you need to pay attention to things that your child is showing interest in at different stages, because it's a sign that the child, that the window of opportunity is open. The burning desire or interest helps the child learn with ease. The desire that gravitates towards that thing is what helps them learn with ease. So the neuroplasticity of the brain can split for retraining, just giving room for rewiring. But like I said, rewiring is a whole lot of work. All right. So this is the table of the windows of opportunities. And I think I'm going to need time to explain this very, very well. So let me go back to this. we are going to evaluate tonight. So I want you to evaluate your parenting journey. I want you to evaluate yourself. By the way, you are not raising a child, you are raising an adult. We don't raise children to be children, we raise children to become adults. So you have a boy in your hand, but you are raising a father, you are raising a boss, you are raising a leader. You have a girl child in your hands, you are raising a wife, you are raising a mother. I want you to see big. I want you to think big from tonight. And I want you to go back and evaluate your relationship with your child and your inputs currently. So I think I'm going to stop here tonight because I don't want to take much of our time.